Hey, what's up, Crossroads kids? I'm back, and we're here with week 3 of Digging Deeper with Mr. B. If you remember, last week we started our new life app, which is the word humility, and humility means putting others first, even when we think we might deserve it. And if you remember, last week, Pastor Matt and I, we started our Humble Pie Challenge, and you saw our 2 videos last week, and you guys got to see an example of humility and not so much. Now, what we're going to do today, before we get into our Bible story, is something a little bit fun. We're going to play a game called The Empty Egg. So let's head to the kitchen and check out this game. Alright, so we are here today, and we are going to play the game The Empty Egg. And The Empty Egg is not a real game. It's a game that I just created in my head. But this is the game. I have this dozen eggs, but they're all plastic eggs, and they're all filled with a different ingredient. Okay, so some of them might be ghost pepper hot sauce, some of them might be ketchup, fruit punch, Pepsi. They're all a bunch of different things that I just have in my fridge. Okay, but one of these eggs is empty. If when I draw my eggs, I'm going to pick 3. If one of them is empty, then I don't have to drink anything. But if I don't find the empty egg, and I pick 3 eggs that all have ingredients in it, I have to put them into this cup and drink it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 3 eggs, and I'm going to hope that I find the empty egg. So here we go. First one. All right, the first one is ranch. Now, I love ranch, so I'm not even mad about that. That's good. Okay, let's do another one. Here we go. Second one, salsa. Okay, I like salsa though. Salsa ranch, like a spicy ranch. That might not be too bad. Let's try the next one. Here we go. Fruit punch. Now, since this is a game that I created in my own head, I'm going to make a new rule. And the new rule is that I get to pick 4 eggs. And hopefully this 4th egg, this will definitely be the empty egg. I should have just marked it. Let's see. Pepsi and ranch is not going to be good together. Okay, so just to recap here, my ingredients that are going to be going into this drink are Pepsi, fruit punch, salsa, and ranch. I did not find the empty egg. The empty egg's still in there. So I'm going to go get these ingredients, and I'll be right back. So here I am with my 4 ingredients: fruit punch, Pepsi, and ranch. And not just salsa, hot salsa. And it's chunky. I really wish it did not say that word chunky, because that's going to make this a lot harder to do. So I'm going to add these ingredients to this cup, and then I'm going to drink it, because I did not find the empty egg. Why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why did I do this? You are strong. You are brave. You can do this, Garen. You can do this. Nope. So there it is. I drank all of it, except for like a couple peppers there in the bottom, but otherwise it is done. Now, I am wondering right now, why did I create this game that I had to do that? And now I'm going to feel terrible for the rest of the day. But I hope it was fun to watch. And Remember, I did not get the empty egg. The whole time I was hoping for the empty egg. That's important to remember for the end of the story. So let's go back and let's check out our Bible story for today. Did you know that John and his brother James were named the sons of thunder by Jesus? Wowee! So if you remember, last week we talked about a few different people. We talked about Jesus, obviously. Woo! But we also talked about the religious leaders and Judas. And the plot that religious leaders and Judas are coming together to try and kill Jesus. And if you remember last week, Jesus takes his disciples out to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he prays and he prays and he says, God, if this isn't supposed to happen, please take it away. But he says, if it's your will, God, let it happen. And then he keeps going back to his disciples 3 different times, and his disciples are sleeping. Remember that? And so this week, we pick up where our story last week left off. Remember, Jesus looks out and he sees the crowd coming to arrest him with Judas in the front. So we pick up our story. Jesus is arrested, and he's standing in the courts in front of the high priest, and they're saying to Jesus in John chapter 18, verses 19 and 20, they say to Jesus, they say, what have you been teaching? And Jesus says, I've spoken openly to the world. Jesus replied, I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jewish people come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. So what's happening here is the high priest and the people that are arresting Jesus are trying to find something bad that Jesus said. And Jesus said, you can ask anybody who heard me speak. I've done nothing wrong. I've said nothing wrong. So the high priest, he can't find anything wrong with Jesus. Obviously, because Jesus did nothing wrong. But he knows something still has to be done because there's a lot of angry people here saying that Jesus did something wrong. So he sends the group and Jesus to Rome, which Rome is like the center of everything. This is like the big deal now. Okay, he sends them to Rome and into the Roman government in front of a man named Pontius Pilate. Okay? Oh, hey. It's probably a name that you've heard before if you've heard this story. And Pontius Pilate, he takes Jesus in and he starts asking him questions. And he starts to learn that there's nothing wrong with what he's doing. Jesus has done nothing wrong. And so Pilate brings him back out to the crowd and he says, I can't find anything wrong with this man. Let's let him free. Because at this time, during Passover, there was a Jewish tradition where they would let one prisoner free. So Pilate's like, I'll let Jesus free. He'll be the prisoner I let free this year because he's done nothing wrong. But the crowd, they get angry and they say, no, he needs to be arrested. And this is where the story really gets serious. Pilate gets Jesus, and they take him away from the crowd who's all shouting terrible things at him. And they go and they whip Jesus, a man who's done nothing wrong. Then they go and place a crown of thorns on his head. Now think of a thorn bush, and if you've ever gotten poked by a thorn, how bad that happened, or how bad that hurts, right? Now think of that on your head, and think about a thorn that's much, much longer. They put that and they stick it into his head. Then after that, they put on a purple robe. And you might say, all these bad things and then a purple robe kind of sounds nice. But the purple robe is actually terrible. Because the purple robe is meant for kings. And so they're not saying Jesus is king in a good way. They're saying Jesus is king in a we're making fun of you kind of way. They're putting this on him, laughing at him, saying, ha ha, you're the king of the Jews. And they're actually putting it on him as a joke. So Jesus, who's done nothing wrong, has now been whipped, been beaten, had a crown of thorns put on his head, and then as a joke, put a king's robe on him. The story has taken a really crazy turn for a man who has done nothing wrong. So Pilate brings Jesus back out in front of the crowd, and Jesus has his purple robe on to make fun of him. He has the crown of thorns in his head. He's been whipped, beaten, bruised, made fun of. And now he stands back out in front of the crowd, and Pilate says, here's your man. I should let him free though. He's done nothing wrong. And the crowd says, no, crucify him, kill him. He said he's the Son of God. There's no way that's true. He's a liar. Crucify him. And Pilate keeps on saying, no, Jesus has done nothing wrong. You can crucify him, but I'm not going to do it. And they say, well, if you're a real king, if you're a real friend of Caesar, who's the leader of Rome, if you're a real friend of him, you'll crucify him, and you'll be a real leader. And so Pilate, although he doesn't see anything wrong with Jesus, he's going to crucify him because the people are telling him to, and he can't look weak in front of them. So now they get Jesus, and the crowd is following him, and they give Jesus this giant cross, and they say, carry it. And they make Jesus carry his cross up to a hill called Golgotha. Okay? And this is where the next part of the story takes place. So Jesus gets to the top of the hill, and the soldiers pound nails into his hands onto the cross, and they put the cross up. So Jesus is hanging there by his hands and feet with nails in them. And he's tired, and he's beaten, and he's been broken down. And now we hear that they put a sign over Jesus' head that says King of the Jews. Remember, that's not something that's really a good thing in this sense. It's they're trying to make fun of him. People are shouting terrible things at him. And Jesus' mom, Mary, is in the crowd, and Jesus sees her. And he just gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And in John 19:30, it says this: when he had received a drink, Jesus said, "It is finished." And with that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. So in this moment, Jesus dies. Jesus is dead. This story, if it ends here, is awful. It's a hard story to listen to, honestly, right? But if it ended here, it would be awful. I wouldn't even be telling it to you. But there's another part to this story that makes it the greatest story ever told. Let's get into that. So two guys, Joseph and Nicodemus, they take Jesus' body down and they go and prepare it for burial. And they do that by wrapping it in different kind of cloths and putting myrrh on it. And if you remember, myrrh was actually given to Jesus when he was a baby by the Magi. So they wrap the body up. They use the myrrh to put on the body to prepare it for burial. Then they take the body and they put it in a tomb. And this tomb is kind of like, almost like a cave, and with an opening in the front. They put the body in there, and then they roll a gigantic stone in front of the opening so that nobody can get in there and try to steal the body, and nobody can do anything to the body. So that body is going to be stuck in there once they put that giant stone in front of it. So they roll the stone, and they leave. Now, about 3 days later, a woman named Mary Magdalene is walking toward the tomb. She's probably going there to spend some time, just to kind of just remember Jesus and just spend time at the tomb. And she gets there, and something's up. Okay, she looks at the tomb, and the stone is rolled away. That stone that's not supposed to move is rolled away. And not only that, she looks inside the tomb, and it's empty. So she runs back to town, and she starts talking to two of Jesus' disciples, Peter and John. Actually, John's the one who wrote this book. And she says, guys, somebody stole the body. So all three of them go back to the tomb, and they look in there again, and they actually see that the strips of cloth and linen that were wrapped on Jesus' body, they're still there. This is where the story gets amazing, okay? And just like last week, where I could not tell you the story well enough. Only the Bible could. I have to do the same thing here. Okay, so if you have your Bible, I'm going to be reading from John 20, and I'm going to start at verse 11. Okay, so remember, Mary, Peter, John, they all just went back to check out the tomb, and now Mary, she's crying, and she goes back outside, and this is what happens. Now Mary stood outside of the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb again and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and one at the foot. They asked her, "Why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she did not realize it was Jesus. He asked her, "Why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for?" So Jesus is asking Mary, "Who are you looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out, "Teacher!" Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that she had seen these things. So Mary goes outside of that tomb and she starts crying, and Jesus is there. And she thinks it's the gardener at first. She goes, if you took the body, please tell me." And I love this part where Jesus only says one word, and it's her name. He says, "Mary." And she instantly knows that Jesus is there. This is amazing news, guys. Jesus shows right here that he defeated death. That is news to celebrate. And not only that, is he's showing humility again. He put his life on the cross. He put himself on the cross, even though he didn't deserve it, for us. We cannot forget that. Now, I think that's time for some celebration music. So, this is my challenge for this week, is this. Mary, when she leaves the tomb after speaking to Jesus, she doesn't just go home and just forget about it. No, she goes and she tells people about it. She goes and tells people the good news that Jesus is alive. And that's why we celebrate Easter. That is why this past Sunday, was so important. So my challenge for you is think of one person who might not know Jesus, who maybe's only been to church maybe with you once or maybe never. I want you to think of one person. I want you to tell them that this is good news. Tell them why Easter is so important. Tell them why this past Sunday matters so much. So thank you for joining us for week 3 of Digging Deeper with Mr. B. And I'll be back next week with another video, and we're going to focus on humility again. So make sure you check out the Humble Pie Challenge and vote for who is showing humility better this week. And also, maybe share this video, comment, tell me